Addendum of Lord Mamusium. In accordance with his final request, bequeathed to me in a sealed envelope, along with certain other items. Following the reading of his last will and testament, I waited until the small cortege had departed in its entirety from the scene of my late colleague's interment before entering the vault. Harker's private letter ended. Last and finally, I request that whenever I quit this life and am laid to rest, I should join my beloved Carmel and our daughter in their tomb. I do not wish to be interred in the family vault of my ancestors. My solicitors have already been instructed thus far. What follows, I can only ask of you, dear friend, and I trust that you will not flinch in its execution. You'll need to apply great discretion, but do what you know to be necessary so that I may rest in peace. With my loved ones. I also ask that the two inward sides of Carmel's and my coffin be taken out, the lead removed, and the coffins then be pushed together. That our joined remains be allowed to repose undisturbed. I further entreat that the tomb is then permanently sealed. Thank you for all you have done in the past, and at the last, for what you are about to do for us. May God and his holy angels bless and protect you. When I glanced at his corpse as it lay there, prior to the coffins being affixed together, I knew what to do and acted swiftly in its execution. Here lay my comrade, my colleague, but mostly my friend, whom I was now required to dispatch by the only certain remedy to give him the peace he surely deserved. The sweet smell of death permeated the inside of that tomb as I tried methodically to go about the business with which I should have been familiar, but could not accustom myself on this occasion. There he slept, looking more alive in death than ever he did in life in his latter years. I raised the stake with both hands and twice lowered it again, unable to bring myself to perform the awful task. His eyes were closed, thank heavens, for if they had been open, I cannot vouchsafe what I would have done, but I hope I would have found the courage to overcome my hesitation. In that moment, I understood fully the immensity of the difficulty Harker faced when confronted with the exorcism of Carmel. My heart went out to him. I had judged him, perhaps too harshly. I looked again at my friend in the casket, and in the half-light of an oil lamp, thought I could detect a tear leaving the corner of his right eye. It might have been a trick of the light, but I felt convinced that he was urging me to carry out his wishes and not delay in the way he had postponed the act himself. Whatever it was that caused the moisture to appear, it was enough to stir me to proceed. Praying for strength, I raised the wooden stake for the third time and brought it down into the corpse's heart with a sickening thud. A splash of blood shot across my forehead and dribbled down the side of my face. The corpse's head turned and its blue eyes opened briefly, then closed. The eerie silence was more unnerving than if the cadaver had groaned aloud. I placed the host in its mouth and began the appropriate prayer for the newly dead. When I glanced at the corpse for the final time, prior to the coffin being affixed, I witnessed such an expression of peace and contentment that I was moved to tears. Incredibly, the face and hands were restored how they once appeared years ago. The ugly scars and burns occasioned during the period of demonic interference had entirely faded. Later that day, I arranged for some workmen to brick up and seal the entrance to the mausoleum. It is now impossible to imagine unquiet slumbers for those entombed within. I looked one last time at their resting place and whispered, "Goodbye, James. Goodbye, Carmel."